define success? And how far really do good grades go in determining a student's future? What's the correlation? We're going to present some data today, but it's not just going to all be about data. We are going to get some expert opinion as well. Some of the leading thinkers in this space, in the world, joining us here today to share their thoughts on success, going beyond the grade, and child development as well. This is what it's about today, going beyond the grade. What is important? How do we measure success? And what do we as parents and educators need to do? Because we came from a different era where our success was measured differently. So do we have to unlearn what we learned at school back then? And do we have to think differently about our children and our schools and our education? And this is relevant not just to parents, but also to students here today. So if you're a student, it's great to see you. My name's Graham Brown. I will be your host and your guide for the webinar today. Now, if you've joined before one of the Smart Plus webinars, you know what to do. And if you haven't, there is a chat button right at the bottom of the screen here. This is what I want you to do. I want you to click that chat icon and say hello. Where are you from? We want to know where you are from in the world, because every time we do these webinars, we get an interesting response all over the world. We have the family of GSF schools from different parts of the world joining us in. If you joined as well from a previous webinar, we'd love to know how many you've done so far, and great to see you back. So hello from Tokyo. All right, Tokyo first. We always get a good representation from Japan. Obviously, we had a focus on Japan and quality management last episode. Pune, India, hello to you. Great to see representation from India. Singapore again. Singapore, Malaysia, hello there. If you came from Malaysia, joining parts 1, 2, and 3. And now for part 4. It's great to see that you've joined us on the journey for every single episode. I'm glad you're enjoying this and you're finding it valuable. One more from Malaysia there. Bangalore as well. Abu Dhabi, some local representation. I'm sure you're going to be familiar with some of our speakers here today then. Great to have you all here today. Wonderful to see. One more. Oh yes, of course, one of our speakers joining from Warwick locally. I'll introduce the speakers. I think they're raring to go very shortly. But before we do that, let's talk about the podcast if you're following. So for those of you that have joined for 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm sure you know about the podcast and have checked it out already. If you are new to the GSF webinars, then this is what you can do. You can take your phone and just scan that QR code there. Just take a photo of it and it will take you to Spotify. And on Spotify, you can get access to all the webinars, all the past content. Because I know what it's like. Sometimes you're busy, you might miss a webinar, you might want to bank a webinar, which you might not be able to come to in the future. So by subscribing to the podcast, you'll always be updated by all the content from the experts here today. So you won't miss a thing. And I find as well, some of the audience tell me that they like to go back and listen to some of the content because there's a lot coming at you today. There's going to be discussion, thoughts, ideas, Q&A, data, the lot. So you might want to go back and just review, do your homework. Go to the School of the Future podcast and check it out there. You can get access to all of the past webinars. Coming up in the next 40 minutes, we have some of the leaders in this space. I suppose people who've dedicated their life to education, to, well, child development and understanding both from the academic and the practical sense about the child, the holistic nature of success, and what really role good grades determine or play in a student's future. And they've seen it, that, you know, there's a lifetime of commitment, both inside schools, inside government, and, you know, everything in between. So I will introduce you very shortly our guests. They're coming up. But you know how this works here. Before the guest, we have a poll. We talk to the audience first. What is on the audience's mind? What's going to happen here is we're going to put a poll up in a minute, and I'm going to ask the audience to select the top ranking items from this poll. And as we're doing this, I'm going to now chat to the guests and ask them their opinion, because they'll get the poll in front of them as well. And I'm going to ask them for their opinion on what they think people are going to vote for here. So a little bit of an ambush, but I like to keep the guests on their toes, but a bit of fun as well before we actually dive in and introduce the guests on a bit more of a formal basis. Let's cue the poll. Here it comes. So we are asking you today, which of these factors are a good measure of success? There are 10 factors in there. You might need to scroll down if you can't see them all on your screen. Obviously, success should be delivered in parentheses, in quotes, because you define success. But what do you think? Would love to hear. So you can select, I think you can select multiple choices here. So what we'd like you to do in the audience is select here. Which of these factors do you think are a good measure of success for a student today? So let's go. Let's roll the poll. Let's get these votes coming in. Would like to know. So let's get the results up on the screen as we do the poll. From that very brief introduction to the poll, have we lost the poll, engineer? Where did that go? So, okay, maybe that will come back up. Ralph and Heena, I will do the formal introductions in a minute. But firstly, did you see the list there? Ralph, did you see that list, long list of items? Hurry, yes. Here it comes, it's back. Yourself, having a look here. You've got salary, job title, happiness, making a difference, mastery of skill, job security, overcoming challenge, academic achievement, freedom to choose, respect of your peers. Ambushing you here a little bit, pick one. Which of those strikes you as an underrated measure of success today?
The underrated one, I think, has been happiness. And it's the hardest one to pin down. But that's the modern world. The modern world is almost making happiness a fashion now. It's almost becoming an obsession. So I find that an incredibly difficult area to measure.
Do you think it will go, the pendulum will swing back in years to come? It's like almost like diet fads. People say, oh, carbohydrates, no carbohydrates, happiness, SAT tests. Are we going to swing back, or is it not that fickle?
Well, you're talking about what success is. I think success increasingly in the modern world is much more personal. It's about your personal journey in life. It's quite a Western way of looking at things. For some cultures, success is honor of your parents and your own culture and of your identity. So it does mean different things in different countries. But success in the West has conventionally been about salary and achievement. But that's as I say, it's moved. But it's a great question to start, because these things aren't single factors.
It's not binary.
Multifaceted.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for playing along and giving us your thoughts on that. We're going to dive a bit deeper into Professor Ralph's background and legacy as well. Heena, yourself, welcome to the show first. Thank you very much for joining us from Abu Dhabi.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to have you here. Of that list, we don't have the list in front of us, but if you can remember, you're a teacher, you have a good memory. So of that list, here we go, it's come back. Happiness excluded. Pick one of these, which you think is an underrated factor as a measure of student success.
I would stick to this particular happiness, which is again here we can see. So it was never no carbs and back carbs. Happiness always existed, and it's perennial. Generally, what we do is success is equal to money plus power. However, nothing could be far from the truth. And one needs to ponder if that success is making them happy or not. So unless one is happy, what is the use of great career or the so-called success? So many of the parents, specifically, I would say, are under the impression that good exam results will get them lucrative career, and that will eventually buy them happiness and success. However, we all know that money alone cannot buy success or happiness.
Hmm.
And I would just like to add over here that happiness is a destination, it's not a destination, it's a journey. And that is how, where we need to understand that unless and until I'm happy, results represent only efforts,
Hmm.
and marks do not represent knowledge.
Hmm.
So we have to see that happiness should not be underrated at any cost. And results, unfortunately, are yardsticks, but happiness, unless and until I am happy, there wouldn't be any success that would mean anything for me.
Yeah, great point. Great life lessons as well. Excellent. Well, we've set the scene for today. What we're going to do now is, before we do the formal intros to our guests today, and you can see that they already have opinions and they've got some valuable content to share. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the audience one more question, and that is, there is a function here at the bottom of your screen which allows you to put your hand up, I believe, just like being back in the classroom. So put your hand up if you put happiness, and that was the top ranking point on the poll. If you put happiness as one of your factors that you rated as the most important. So what I want you to do is find the hand up button and then just click that, and it will appear, and we'll see who in this room rated happiness as one of the key factors on the poll. All right, so we have people putting their hands up now. That's great. Okay, fantastic. So you found the hands up button. That's a good start. All right, so we have a lot of people putting their hands up if they rated happiness, which is great to see. So what I'm going to do now, and you know how it works if you've been in a previous webinar with us, I'm going to ask you, if you have your hand up now and you also have audio and video, I'm going to ask one of you, the magic spotlight is going to shine on you. We're going to ask you to join us for the webinar very briefly, and we're going to find out what you think. So keep your hand up. So keep your hand up now. I recognize some of the names as well. These are the people that put their hand up every week and they just want to get onto the webinar, which is great. So I know I can see the names. I may come to you in a minute, but let's pick somebody who's new first. Keep your hands up, by the way, as we pick people, because we may ask a couple of people. Let's do Anshika Shrivastava, if I've got the pronunciation right. Apologies if I haven't. Can we try engineer and get Anshika Shrivastava? Yep. Okay. I think Anshika's going to join us now. There we go. Excellent. Okay. Anshika, did I get your name pronounced right first? Hello there. Welcome. So maybe we can get some audio. Hello there. Anshika.
Hello,
Let's get your audio on. If you can just turn
yes,
that.
sir.
Okay. Are you a student, Anshika?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can call me Graham, by the way. I'm not your teacher. Anshika, where are you in the world?
So I actually live in India, the North Indian part.
Which part of India? Try me.
Capital of India, Delhi.
I know Delhi. I've been to Delhi. Very nice. Okay. Which school are you at?
I study at the school GIIS Noida.
Okay. And if your teacher's here today joining us, or any of your students, maybe you can shout out to them, say hello.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, my friends.
Excellent. Good. Anshika, you voted for happiness.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why did you choose happiness? And do you think it's something that is underrated today in education? Tell us a little bit about that.
So many students think that only getting high scores is the best thing, and through that only we can get a high self-respect. But I believe that if you I believe that if you get some good, if you get some score in your exams, and you should be contented about, you should think that yes, I have done this and I've done it better than the last time. You should be happy about your results, what you've got in your exam, not just be like sad or you just need to study all the time. Happiness is a thing which everyone needs.
Yeah. Excellent. How old are you, Ansika?
So I'm 13 years old.
13. Fantastic. Very good. Do you think you have a future in public speaking, perhaps radio, TV, whatever it is that is popular by the time that you get out into the world of work?
I would love to spread some teachings about to the students about happiness in the future.
Wow. Great. What a wonderful place to start. Ansika, fantastic. Thanks for joining us today. We'll take one more. Let's do, and apologies if I've pronounced wrong, Nisi or Nikki Anthony. Always a bit of a gamble pronouncing something like that. Can we have them on the line? Fantastic. And apologies. And I'm sure I'm not the first person to mispronounce. I don't know if it's Anthony first name or Nisi, Nikki. Please enlighten me. How do I say it? Hello there. Do we have them on audio? Oh, maybe they're shy. They've dropped off. Hello, Anthony. Are you with us? Okay. Let's do this then. Let's take somebody else. Let's try Cedric. I see a familiar name. Cedric, welcome. Can we get Cedric onto the show very quickly? I think if I remember very clearly from last time, you joined us from Japan, correct? Or no, Cedric, welcome.
Hi, Graham. Yes, you're correct. I joined from Tokyo.
Hello there. Welcome. And you put happiness at the top of your choices. Tell us about that.
Correct.
So, I mean, obviously of Japan, of all places, very traditional education system. You're from France yourself. So tell us.
Well, I think it's not such a straightforward answer. I think as a parent, I'll start there. To see the academic accomplishments of your sons or daughters is definitely something we thrive for, right? And would be happy for because we're kind of sure that in life they would be successful. However, I think this could certainly be a pitfall. I mean, depending on the age of the student, we have also to consider what would ease the criteria of happiness. And that might not necessarily be a good job or a high paid salary, but something that is more towards their expectations, right? So I think it's multi-faced type of answer. From a personal perspective, from a personal experience, if I may try to close on that comment, I've been at some point trying to achieve a certain happiness by having a good job, etc. But I kind of lose the perspective on the time I was spending trying to get to that goal versus time I would spend with family, for example. So you kind of have to try to balance that to achieve what is to you happiness.
Yeah, wonderful. Cedric, it's great to see you again. Thanks for joining us. And it's good to see
you
you back. And thanks for sharing your thoughts and your comments as well. Professor Ralph Tabberer, it's great to have you on the webinar here today. You've spent a life as a teacher, an educator, and a trainer a teacher of teachers in many ways, you know, setting up schools globally, working with governments and holding very senior positions in governments and designing education systems and dealing with all the challenges that come with the above, I imagine. Ralph, listening to those two attendees here today. So we had the young 13-year-old and then obviously Cedric joining us from Japan, some different opinions. When people talk about happiness, for example, how common are these thoughts from the people that you come across, both from students and parents? Are they aware of a need for something else? And how has that changed as well? Because you've spent a life in education, seeing the evolution of this discussion?
Yes, the people certainly are looking for more than results. Today's session is very well targeted because first of all, we have to embrace if you like, almost the power and the immensely strong position of results and exams, of measurement of academic achievement. It's very interesting. The last 30 years, the amount of exams, the amount of measurement of academic achievement has just skyrocketed. You know, there are the biggest education businesses in the world over the last 30 years haven't been the universities, or they've been the examination bodies and the publishers of the books for examinations. This has been what this massive education industry has largely been about. And we've had more of it and more of it. You know, parents want their children to get great results so that they have qualifications, which are the credentials to get them a job. The governments want their country to have the best results so that they attract companies to come there in order to set up their businesses with a high skills workforce. Teachers want the results because it's the feedback that tells you whether all the things you're doing and saying is working. So we all depend on these results, this lifeblood really of the education industry. And now at the same time, all of us know it's not just about that. It can't be just about that. In the same way that everyone who works in business knows that money is important, and you can tell the difference between companies partly by the value they generate and their profit and loss, but it's not everything.
Yeah.
And I have complete understanding of everyone who says, you know, for goodness sake, you're building schools, Ralph. Give us schools where our children can get the best credentials and the best academic achievement possible. And equally, I'll turn to, it might be the same family, it might be the husband and wife, or it might be the next family that comes in, or the next student who comes in who says, well, yes, I want the results, but I want more than that, for goodness sake. This is, you know, that's not enough. And if you just give me back a child who can do tests, then that's not why I'm sending them to your school. I'm looking for a richer development, something more. So we're absolutely on the spot here with people knowing that other things are important, but also we're living in a world that's sometimes over-dominated by the exams.
Fantastic. I will ask you a bit more in depth as well as we go into this webinar about your findings and your thoughts on this subject as well, because I imagine there's a lot of pressures, isn't there, from different angles. Like you mentioned, governments, you know, want their skills to attract employers and funding, for example, and teachers want the feedback. So that there is a reason why we have grades and scores to standardize in a way a lot of the education system. We were chatting off air before the webinar. We were just chatting about some of our thoughts, and we were coming up with this idea of gravity, which is almost like grades are like gravity. And as Ralph says, you know, it's the reason that keeps us on this rock hurtling through space, not falling off. But it's not the reason we're here, is it? It's just useful. I mean, the gravity doesn't make everything in this room fly up in the air. So, you know, that is useful, but it's not the reason. So we need it, but it's not why we're here, right? So if we can think of it in those terms, maybe it can help us better understand grades. You know, we're not here to, you know, master gravity. We're here to do something else. So I'm going to bring in Dr. Heena. Dr. Heena Rachh, welcome. So principal of the school in Abu Dhabi. Great to have you here, and had a very long career as an educator, and starting very young as well, taking on a lot of responsibility, taking on schools. So A little bit about your background, Heena. You are a teacher by origin and trade, but you've really, you've risen through the echelons of teaching to, running not just one school, but multiple schools as well. Give us the 101 on your background and how you got to where you are now.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you so much. Yes, I maintain that I am a teacher by choice and not by chance. If somebody asks me when did that happen, I feel that I was born with that kind of an instinct and that aptitude that I always wanted to touch lives, inspire lives, and something that really helped me again or navigate me through that pen is mightier than sword. And that is how I always felt that pen has the power to change the destiny of a country or a nation or a world at large. So it's very, very important to be in a profession where you're passionate about it, and which gives you an opportunity to touch lives, inspire lives, and make a change. So you are a value creator, and that is how I have been into this, and 30 plus years into this field. And every day is like I am reinventing myself each day. So that is the beauty of being into education field, where you are reinventing yourself every day and touching and learning. Actually, it's such a beautiful learning from this Gen Z, Gen Alpha, that it keeps you on your tenterhooks all the time. You are wanting to do something.
Yeah, well, that's growth, isn't it? Constant learning. And it's great to see, even educators feel that they have to learn. And that sets the example really for everybody, doesn't it? When we talk about, for example, we're talking about happiness, and I imagine you as a teacher have started out, with lofty goals and visions of what you would do. You talked about changing, making a difference, touching lives, which, these are all noble goals. And sometimes I wonder as well that is it not the challenge, like with doctors, as an example, everybody as a doctor signs up, they take the Hippocratic Oath, and then, they are there to serve mankind effectively. And yet something happens on the way, paperwork, statistics, data, exams, the equivalences of that. And, doctors somehow become removed from the patient, that they're now not focusing about well-being and happiness and the holistic view. And now they're focusing on keeping the administrators happy and serving up medicines and so on. There must be a challenge for teachers that they all go into the profession. And yet it's great to see you 30 years on still smiling, that you must be conscious that the gravity of being a teacher must be tough, isn't it? Paperwork and always having to introduce a new system and so on. How do you deal with that?
One beautiful thing, Graham, which I have adopted in my life is that if you're looking for probabilities, look for problems. So more the challenges, better it is, because as you have rightly mentioned that the parental perspective on results and the orientation and how the results are treated as sacrosanct. And there the problem is where it is considered as a visa and a passport to a lucrative career. And the moment you start, we come from a mindset. How have we been taught to measure success is salary and job title. That is how. So we have to challenge that status quo and bring in a new perspective and, give that faith to the parents and the children that it is not about only career or it is more about your happiness. So results, definitely we do have, like in our global schools, we have wonderful systems of 7S analysis, 7 segments, student wise, teacher class wise, section wise. But basically we believe that a child has to be measured against himself. I have to see what is my benchmark today and where I have to start. So rather than comparing, It has to be my journey with myself. And that is how we believe in 9 gems philosophy, where we have the report card as well, where multiple intelligences of Howard Gardner is at play, where I could be physically, and my physical intelligence is dominating, or my spatial intelligence is dominating. So we have designed a report card where every child gets a platform to display his or her talent and be happy about it. So yeah, it
Well,
is.
we're going to go there. We're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to talk about Howard Gardner, multiple intelligence, 9 gems, physical intelligence. We're going to do all of that. So thank you for the 101, the brief introduction. That was great. We've set all of that up. I'm going to now challenge the audience and the guests a little bit to, come up with some opinions about some data that I'm going to share with you. It's all very great that you're all voting for happiness, but let's face facts, folks. We have to pay the bills. So if we can jump to slide 13, unlucky for some on the presentation. Let's jump to slide 13. And next one on here we go. So here's some data. This is from the US, by the way. I'm going to ask Ralph and Heena to pitch in with the ideas and counter argue this one. This is from the US, and I'm sure the pattern, the trend is global, which compares median household income by educational attainment. Okay. And what you have, for example, let's say you were to say high school graduate or college, 46 to 57,000 household income. And yet those with masters, 110,000, and a doctorate is 135,000, and professional qualification even more still. So this is telling me that, okay, right, happiness, but I'm a lot happier if I'm earning 135K a year than I am on 46K, 50K a year, because happiness is all well and good, but when you can't pay the rent, when you can't pay for health insurance, that's a happiness issue. Ralph, when you see figures like this, and I'm sure you've seen it in many different formats rolled out when you've been involved at a government level as well, how do you view this data?
Yeah,
I think it's incredibly important.
Sorry, well, let's do Ralph first. Sorry. Yeah, it's a bit of a delay.
I'm sorry. I think it's incredibly important data. I mean, I can spend 20 minutes taking the data to pieces and saying why it doesn't quite say what we think it says and why we've got to be cautious about this and careful about that. But you're absolutely right. The basic message there is that the more education that there is in a family and in an individual, the more opportunity they have to earn more, and that can be a big contributor to happiness. There aren't many families I know where that doesn't matter for their children. So this is the stark truth, but it's not the only truth. It absolutely says that the schools should be obsessed about trying to ensure that we find the potential in every child that will help them to get great results. Now, the consequence of that is not that that's the only thing that matters, and it's certainly the consequence is not that the children who attain less are without worth. We're not having any of that, but it does reinforce this message about how important results are, not just within the schooling system, but in universities and in work and life. It will make a difference in your life.
Absolutely. We can't deny that fact. But
not at all.
Heena, how would you look at that and sort of build on that, if you may?
Yes, Graham, like what we see is the problem with results is that it measures everyone with a common yardstick. So when we look at the statistical data otherwise, we will realize that 60% or more are pursuing profession other than their professional degrees. So if I'm an engineer by degree, but I may be doing something else by passion. So in such case, how do we say that results have helped them succeed? It is perhaps their passion that has helped them chart a career beyond results. If we have a few examples like Oyo Hotels owner, the young billionaire entrepreneur Ritesh. So, and there are many school dropouts. Even if you look at Steve Jobs or
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg, and many examples are like
Well,
that.
maybe you can. I'm just going to pause you there because I've got a slide lined up for you on that. Slide 15. This guy. You know
He
this
is.
man? Tell us the
Uh,
story. What was his education like?
He is a school dropout, and in India, if you talk about, they say, if cricket is religion, Sachin is God. That is how India looks at this cricket legend. Okay, and he is a school dropout, not even having a grade 10 class, certificate. But
Hmm.
we all know that he is a legendary cricketer. And as
Hmm.
I say that for in the world of cricket, he is considered as God for the audience. So how do you then measure, or how do you relate degrees to? So you need to de-link degrees or education with your passion or with your career. If you're
Hmm.
passionate, you will be successful. And imagine, I always wonder if Sachin Tendulkar was asked to hold a microphone for singing, and Lata Mangeshkar, another legendary singer in the Guinness World Record book, was given a bat. It would have been like, as Einstein says,
Terrible.
climbing a monkey, jumping, swimming, and a fish climbing a tree. So,
Absolutely. Do
yeah.
you think though? He's an exception, but he turned out okay. So in many ways, you could argue that the system worked, couldn't you? That in that sense, could you, if we had a better system in education, could we identify more people like him because they seem to be doing okay already? Or is it that there are a lot more people like him, maybe not on the same scale, obviously, but they're just kind of getting not the support, or they're falling through the cracks of the system? Is that what do you think? Where does your sort of
Yeah,
opinion fall on that?
yes, Graham. I would say that these are some exceptional examples to the rule, and many such exceptions are there to the rule. But of course, there are people who have not got their due, and a fish was perhaps tested on the ability to climb trees, and we have many such broken, damaged individuals.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we have seen those backbenchers, late bloomers doing very well in life, and where somewhere my passion was not addressed to, and I have lost in life. And there are uh, people who have at the helm of career committed or contemplated on committing suicide, like Nadia, a Romanian who won a lot of,
Comaneci, yeah.
yeah, who had a lot of gold under her belt in Olympics. At a young age, she started at 14, and by the time she wanted to, contemplate on committing suicide. So we have different kind of
Hmm.
such examples. But what we as educational fraternity, we have to provide a platform like Nine Gems or something like that, where different multiple intelligences are taken care of. So
Hmm.
result
Hmm.
cannot be a yardstick. So we know our education system and the new education policy, the national education policy, which has got revamped after many decades. I'm sure that if implemented well, definitely we might have an education system catering to all these intelligences.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it, as a journey? Well, we'll talk a bit about multiple intelligence very soon. That's coming up. Ralph, if you have a look at this chat, slide 16 coming up. Next one here, often cited as Steve Jobs as a great example of a dropout from Stanford. And look, he went on to set up Apple, and then he worked at Disney, Pixar, and then, he took Apple to, where it is today, really. Obviously, now he's not with us, but his journey has been legendary, and obviously he's inspired a lot of people. And people use that then to say, well, that shows how the system really has failed people like him, and maybe there are more people like him out there, and we need to have a better way of doing this. And yet, maybe a key detail to remember from this is he dropped out of Stanford. He didn't drop out of the local comprehensive. He dropped out of Stanford, one of the elite universities. And Bill Gates was the same. He dropped out of Harvard. And Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook was the same. He dropped out of Harvard. So they had already gotten there. So in a way, it sort of seems a strange situation to be in, isn't it? Like the elite universities, which are seemingly like the pinnacle of achievement, that just going there seems to be enough. And actually what they teach you, despite probably the punishing fees that they charge the parents, seems to be almost secondary. When you hear stories like Steve Jobs and these sort of legendary successes who didn't go through the system, how do you view those? Is that sort of a bit of a very superficial way of viewing their success?
I think there's a few issues here. I think there's a very interesting category of people, the entrepreneurs, for whom many schools don't work. And we've been doing quite a lot of work ourselves in this area, and so has Heena and the GSF community, and that's trying to find new opportunities for entrepreneurs to show themselves, and you have to actually offer them a different kind of experience on top of what you normally do in schools. So I think we're only just learning that it's quite a good idea to give children their first opportunity to run their own business while at school. And we're trying initiatives like that these days, where I think people like Steve Jobs and the Gates, etc., Richard Branson, they'd love this. And in fact, we're finding we're getting in touch with those kind of children. So that's a special group. But I think in general, what I'd say is that what we have to recognise is that how big the education industry is, and we have to recognise it's run by governments almost wholly in order to serve a function in their societies, in their functions of getting workers ready for the economy, their functions of differentiating between people in skills. They're trying to be fair and give opportunity to everybody. There's a set of functions there. And what happens when you've got that kind of demand is you design the best possible bureaucratic answer. The decisive reason for there being exam systems and academic achievement at the core is because it's purely technically superior to any other form of organising 1.5 billion children in schools. So governments have to do that, and I don't want them actually to do anything else. That's fine. But when you get to the profession, you get to teachers who go into the schools and have to translate this into people's lives, then what we must really cherish and love is the fact that our teachers will go in, they will work within that system, but they will add much more. They will look for what the strengths are in the child, the potential is in the child, and they will help them down the academic strand, and then they will look for their other achievements. And teachers can be, good or bad at this, but there are some places where they've now started to codify that search for other capabilities, so that they're systematic in looking for sports achievement, enterprise achievement, language achievement. So the teachers are bringing this, and this is what's happening in Heena's school. So I think there's a very healthy mix here of allowing government to do what it does, but still, again, allowing our teachers to add extra, because it's never enough on its own. If we get that balance right, then I'm happy that we've got something which can adapt to different kinds of children and different expectations of parents, while still making sure that we deliver the main thing that most parents expect, which is credentials.
Bonus question then, following on, do you feel, and this is a tough one, and there is no correct answer, that in the future, or education systems of the future will produce a Steve Jobs or a Sachin Tendulkar, and it would say on their scorecard, A plus, A plus, A plus. Would that be possible, do you think? Or is that an unrealistic question in the sense that, well, maybe those people are just kind of, they exist outside of the system anyway?
They'll beat the system. Thank goodness, people like that will beat the system, whatever
Right.
the system is. I love it, and we must always enjoy those people. They'll be A plus, C, 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 C.
Right.
That's what their card will look like. But I think the other thing we've got to recognise is that it's kind of worth saying is that COVID has just broken the system. We've had this setup of examinations and academic achievement, and actually the system's just been wrecked because the exam system is essentially based on 2 years or more preparation for exam. And when health events come along which interrupt those 2 years, students can't take the exams. Or if they do, then their results in the exams are same as the year before them and the year after them. So that breaks the golden connection, which says that, if you took, CBSE or GCSEs in 1990, that you could compare you to me who took them in 1980. And so we've actually got a very interesting point at the moment where exams will have to change and the measurement of academic achievement will have to change. We'll probably see a lot more use of teacher assessment, the professional side of it, than exams. Maybe exams will be shorter. Maybe credentials will start to be awarded from the age of 8 or 9 as steps along the way, because if you do that, then it's not a disaster if the exam's called off by a pandemic 6 months before. So we're going to be shifting, and I think this does give schools and the professional side of things the opportunity to create a richer card, a balanced card, which recognises all these wider achievements.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, it's an interesting point as well. Having the credentials as well from age 8 or 9, that's going to be interesting. I'm sure that's not going to be without resistance as well. But all of this has some resistance. And this is really what today is about, because I'm sure the parents as well are thinking about what should they do with all of this in mind as well. We'll come to that in a minute, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Heena, I know you've mentioned it already, and I think this is really important for the audience as well, this idea of multiple intelligences. And I just love this idea because once I start reading about this, it makes sense. And you've heard it, and I'm sure the audience has heard this in many different forms, and they've cobbled it together. But this is what it's about. If we can have a look at slide 23, there's this chap who, for anybody that studied this area, called Howard Gardner, and he said, I'll just read off the screen here. The biggest mistake of past centuries in teaching has been to treat all students as if they were variants of the same individual, and thus to feel justified in teaching them all the same subjects the same way. We know that's how it's been for so many years now. That's Howard Gardner. Multiple intelligences. Tell us about multiple intelligences, Heena.
Basically, what we have also identified and what we have done is implementation part has been strong with GIIS schools, where we have 9 gems. So we say that a child has to be physically fit, mentally alert, morally sound, socially adjusted, emotionally balanced, and spiritually divine. How do you do that? So there has to be a system in place, because I might say a lot of things that, okay, there is a story of a yellow crow where the child paints the crow yellow and the teacher says, no, it has to be black. And the child says, no, but because it was sitting on my windowsill and there was a sunlight and it appeared yellow. So how do you identify such kids? And that is how we have 9 gems report card, where different kind of intelligences, maybe a child is good at sports, maybe a child is good at photography. We have culinary labs where a child wants to become a chef. I remember in my one of the school days where the child wanted to become a chef, and parents took it as against that's below dignity or below standard becoming a chef. Where Sanjeev Kapoor comes in the picture and the scenario changes, that a celebrity chef, and then you say, okay, that could also be a profession. So that is how we have implemented this 9 gems report card, where a spatial intelligence or a natural intelligence, a musical intelligence, all the children are catered. We have a sports school where anybody is a sports person out there. So this is how we believe that a child has to be not that one size fits all. It
Mm.
cannot be that way. It has to be so if you look at the Indian system of education long back, it was Gurukula. That was a personalized education. And now we have Google Classrooms. There also you have a personalized education. So it has been a journey from, I always say, as Gurukula to Google. And that personalized journey, personalized learning is very, very important, where
Mm.
individualized education plan, IEPs are prepared, whether they are GNT, gifted and talented children, or there are children needing a special kind of maybe I might learn in a VAC, that is visual auditory kinesthetic, what kind of learner I am. So we are even sensitive to different kind of learning patterns, whether it is a visual or auditory or kinesthetic.
Mm. Wow, this must be a real challenge now for parents. I mean, it's exciting, and yet at the same time, like you say, that an individual program means that we have to think about it as well, which is great in one sense, but also means we have to make decisions. So us as parents, what should parents do about this? Because now I imagine that parents have to take more of an active role, or maybe less. Maybe it's the students. I'm curious to know how this falls. Ralph, yourself, what should parents do, knowing what we know now, knowing that there are multiple intelligences, that we still need grades? It sounds to me almost like, okay, it's like we need good grades and we need all this stuff on top as well. It's not like there's a payoff at some point. It's like you say, when you have the school, it's like we want happiness, but we also want exceptional grades. Everything comes, in balance with the payoff. We have to kind of decide what is important here. As parents, what does this mean to us? How should we approach this? How does it mean I should be involved in my son's education, for example? If I think about him, he does well at school, but he has a different kind of intelligence. I don't know what it's called. I don't have a name for it. He is not a top A student at school, and yet he's passionate about music and programming and cars, as any sort of teenager would be. Like, how do I identify that? What do I do as a parent? How can you advise those audience members out there with the same kind of concerns?
Very good question. And the answer is very simple, and that's spend as much time with those children as you can, encouraging their strengths, guiding them in life. They are apprentices of their parents. They learn from you. And the more time you spend with them, conveying your sense of the world, of purpose, of identity, of love, the more you give them of that, then the better they will do. Just for a moment, forget about school. You're the most important educator of your child. The best parents sit down in the evening and have a meal with their children every evening. And over that meal, they'll talk about, what have you learned today? What have I learned today? What's going on? The best parents will hear their children reading to them in the evening, and will read to their children. And they will share their reactions to the reading. They will spend time. And the messages are all about the importance of learning, the importance of education, the importance of reading. And you convey that through your actions. And you happen to send your children to school, but if you let that become an abdication and an alternative to you, then your child will not prosper. I mean, it's very interesting. You showed Steve Jobs there. When I was a young man, I knew the chief designer at Apple, when he was sort of 14, 15. Johnny Ive, I knew his father, Michael Ive. And Michael was remarkable. He for every weekend, he would take Johnny out on trips, and they would look at the built environment around them, and they would talk about objects they met, and they would talk about how they were made, and why was that circular, why was that triangle, why was that a square, why was that brick, why was that plastic, why was that, and he just had a constant conversation with his child about the things that interest them. They talked about cars, they talked about what would make it go faster, what would make it go slower, and Johnny, became the top designer in the world, not because he went to Newcastle Polytechnic, but because his father gave him that love of a subject, that interest, and that ability to just constantly rethink things. So the parent is what you do yourself is really important. And I think the reinforcement of that is that that doesn't mean that you should just greenhouse your child. You shouldn't just get hold of books and drum in them the knowledge that's in the academic books. You do a huge amount of good by taking them out on a hike and getting them to read the map and find the way. You create a lot of good by giving them an opportunity to take part in Duke of Edinburgh Award, and maybe they do camping and they plan a tour together, or they organise a project of their own, or they serve a part of the community. These additional experiences give these children a sense of themselves, they give them confidence, they give them resilience, which actually have an enormous impact on academic results. If I hothouse a child and I teach them 9 till 3 every day for a week, and they just to pass tests, that child will not do as well as a child who gets a more rounded experience with lots of challenge as well as academics in balance. The hothousing is overdoing it, and you get the problems when you do that. So the parent's role is to get in there. Nobody teaches a child better than you. And I think the best schools will talk to you about what you can do. And they'll talk to you about what they're seeing in your child that you might want to spend more time on. So we can do a lot of work as teachers to improve that conversation to parents. And you've also touched on the other big thing, which is to take the conversation to students themselves. Because I'm absolutely certain the biggest difference between schools in 30 years' time compared with today won't be the technology. It will be students will be in charge. And all the things I've just said about parents, we've got to, we've seen it today with Anshika. Anshika, but at 13, you've already worked an enormous amount out. I'm quite happy to hand the education system over to you with that degree of insight. No, seriously, it's taking that ability and empowering that as a parent and as a teacher that is the way forward.
Oh, amazing. That there's so much to unpack there, Ralph, and Heena as well. Your insights have been phenomenal today. I really enjoyed this. As obviously I'm the moderator of this session, but as a parent as well, the last part, talking about multiple intelligences, and then Ralph, your story about Johnny Ive, that has really impacted me. I'm thinking about that really seriously now. Like after this session, I will actually start thinking about that. And rather than, okay, this is another webinar that we've done together, it was interesting, I'm seriously thinking about that as a story and as a moral tale. It's a parable, if you like, that we can all learn from, and it has a really good ending. And there's always the pressure I feel as a parent that I have to get my son to perform well, because it's all very well showing him all these other things, but at the same time, I need to make him get the grades. And that idea about where school comes in that as well, I think is really enlightening, that school really should enlighten us, because they are the trained professionals. They'll help us understand and see, with their experience, what's in the child that I can't see, we can't see. So it's been a wonderful session. Really enjoyed this. This was enlightening, and I feel on a personal level, and hopefully the audience as well, enjoyed today, because almost all of you stuck around to the end. How about that? That's an hour in this attention-starved world where they say we have attentions of goldfish. Look at that, folks. You've all stuck around to the hour mark. Fantastic. I think it's really more a moniker of the level of insights that we got from our guest today. So thank you very much, Ralph and Heena. Wonderful having you here today. Before you guys go, I want to give you the links so you can get the next session, because hopefully we can continue this journey. I know a lot of you have come from multiple sessions here on the webinar, and we continue the journey into the world of education and school of the future. Let's have a look if we can jump all the way to the last two slides. There we go. This is how you can get signed up. So this is what I want you to do now, folks. We can't have Ralph and Heena back, I'm afraid. I'd love to have them back every session, but they have jobs to do, and that's fine. They've given us plenty of insights today. Who knows, maybe in a future series. Don't want to ambush them here and now, but I would hope that we can continue the conversations that we had today in the next session as well, and bring in more experts who can build upon that. So folks, this is what I want you to do. I want you to scan that QR code, or if it's easier for you, just go into the chat box now. In the chat box, there's a link for you. So just click that. That will take you to the registration page for the next in this series, part 5. A personal thanks to Ralph and Heena. Wonderful. Really enjoyed your insights today. Did you enjoy the session?
Immensely, yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Ralph and Heena, yourself.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Ralph. It was wonderful being here. Thank you so much.
And you, I think you're just, there's a big difference. I can talk about it, but you're doing it every day. Really remarkable school. Well done, Heena.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent.
So pleasure was all mine.
Yeah, well, pleasure was, today was just having you two guests on and sharing your opinions as well. Thank you very much for the audience as well, for your participation, your voting. And for those of you that joined the webinar live as well and got your voice and your face out there, well done to you. Thanks for participating. That's the point of a webinar, to make it more interactive for everybody. We'll see you all next time, part 5. We're signing off here, folks. Have a wonderful afternoon or morning wherever you are in the world, and stay safe. See you next time. Thank you.